Maribel Ortiz arrived at Desert Star Botanical Garden just after sunrise, when the brittle breeze that slipped through Phoenix in January had not yet surrendered to the afternoon's furnace. The adobe walls of the visitor center glowed peach in the dawn light, and the saguaros threw long shadows that looked like solemn sentinels on patrol. Maribel, a retired librarian who had traded catalogue cards for garden gloves, inhaled the dusty fragrance of creosote and wondered if there was a better way to spend a morning. She doubted it. Desert Star's annual Seeds and Stories Gala was only a week away, and she needed to make sure every planting bed was flawless. She stepped into the Pollinators Path exhibit, clipboard under her arm, and stopped short. There, in a raised planter brimming with prickly pear pads, a single torch cactus flaunted a vivid fuchsia bloom, a bloom no one should have been seeing until late April. The blossom was glorious, a ruffled burst of pink with a buttery center, droplets of dew trembling on the petals like tiny mirrors. If Maribel had been any other visitor, she might have snapped a photo and moved along, but she was a lifelong desert rat. Torch cacti did not flower 4 months early, not even with Phoenix's unpredictable winters. Maribel crouched and studied the bloom. A faint chemical tang drifted upward, incongruous with the cactus's earth and sun scent. She touched a fallen petal. Her fingertip came away smudged magenta, as though she had brushed a watercolor still wet. "Dye," she murmured. Someone had painted this blossom, and painted it recently. Footsteps crunched behind her. "Admiring our early overachiever?" asked Dr. Theo Morales, Desert Star's newly hired horticulturist. He wore a sun-faded ball cap and carried a tray of seedlings balanced with graceful confidence. His smile was polite, yet his eyes measured her reaction. "Curious, isn't it?" Maribel replied, straightening. "Torch cacti this time of year." Theo chuckled. "Plants break the rules now and again. It's part of their charm." Maribel kept her tone light. Or maybe someone gave nature a little push. Before he could answer, the garden's executive director, Claudia Steen, called Theo to help unload a truck of native honey mesquite, and he hurried off, seedlings rattling. Maribel watched him go, unease stirring her ribs. Theo was competent, brilliant even, but Desert Star had run his background check. Claudia had insisted. And yet something felt off. By mid-morning, volunteers gathered in the shade house for coffee and muffins. The talk drifted to the news bulletin everyone had heard during the commute. Another shipment of Phoenix Tech's high-capacity microchips had vanished from a freight depot. The theft was the third in a month. The chips were smaller than cuff buttons, reportedly worth thousands apiece on the black market. "Maybe they'll start hiding them inside saguaros," joked Zach Gibbons, a graduate intern whose freckles were as abundant as his curiosity. Maribel nearly choked on her blueberry muffin. "Let's hope not," she said, wiping crumbs from her chin. But the idea, a hollow cactus concealing something valuable, latched onto her imagination like a jumping cholla segment. That afternoon, while Claudia dealt with caterers for the gala and volunteers polished interpretive signs, Maribel returned to the planter. The painted bloom still glared neon against the desert palette. A closer inspection revealed an uneven ridge along one of the thick green pads, as though two pieces had been fused. She pressed gently. The surface gave a fraction of an inch before stiffening. If the pad was hollow, whoever had tampered with it had done so recently and cleverly. A sharp yelp ripped through the air. Maribel looked up to see Zack stumbling out of the propagation greenhouse, clutching his forearm. She hurried over, ushering him to a shaded bench. 2 fine cactus spines protruded from his skin. "What happened?" she asked, tweezing them free. Zack winced. "I was cataloguing Theo's new specimens, knocked into a crate covered with burlap and, well, you know, he got edgy when he saw me near it." Maribel disposed of the spines in a sharps container. "Edgy?" "Yeah, told me to mind my own business. Seems proprietary about those plants." An intern's gripe wasn't a smoking gun, but it reinforced her suspicion. That evening, Maribel brewed chamomile tea and pored over Phoenix Tech articles on her tablet. Each stolen shipment had disappeared within 15 miles of Desert Star. The garden received deliveries almost daily for the gala: pots, linens, exotic succulents, a perfect smokescreen for contraband. By sunrise Wednesday, she had a plan. She signed out a handheld ultraviolet lamp from the Education Centre's supplies, ostensibly to inspect scorpion displays for field trip readiness, and waited for darkness. When the garden gates closed and the last docent departed, Maribel slipped into the pollinator's path. The moon was a sliver, hardly enough to light her sneakers, but the torch cactus bloom glowed faintly, as though harbouring its own secret ember. She switched on the black light. A stark fluorescence burst across the petals, an unnatural halo pulsing purple-blue. The dye, likely fabric paint mixed with a setting agent, fluoresced under UV. Satisfied, she skimmed the lamp over the cactus pads. The uneven ridge she'd felt earlier glimmered where an adhesive seam seeped into the flesh. She probed with a pocket knife. The blade met resistance, then slipped through. A thin layer of green skin popped free, revealing a neat cavity inside the pad. 4 tiny anti-static envelopes nestled within, each stamped with Phoenix Tech's microchip logo. Maribel's stomach fluttered, not with fear, but with the heady thrill of discovery she remembered from years hunting first editions in library basements. She taped the panel shut and tucked an envelope into her jacket for evidence. Then she dialed her sister, Detective Carmen Ortiz, on speed dial. "Tell me you're not calling about another lost parakeet," Carmen groaned. "Much better," Maribel whispered. "Stolen microchips in a cactus." A silence then. "You have 30 seconds before I decide you're prank calling me." Maribel laid out the details: the out-of-season bloom, the dye, the concealed envelopes. "Theo is my prime suspect," she finished. "He's handled every new plant shipment." Carmen exhaled. "Corporate theft is above my pay grade, but I'll loop in property crimes. Sit tight and don't confront anyone alone." "Gala's Saturday," Maribel reminded her. "If they move the chips then, we'll lose them." "We'll be there," Carmen promised. Thursday and Friday, Maribel acted the part of unflappable volunteer, guiding school groups through the Boojum corridor and labelling silent auction baskets. She kept one eye on Theo, who spent hours fussing over the stage plantings for the gala: barrel cacti, blue yuccas, and prickly pear arrangements, each accented by a single vivid bloom identical to the torch cactuses. Maribel's pulse pinballed. If every arrangement contained a hollow pad, the garden would be smuggling hundreds of chips right under the gala guests' noses. Friday night, she met Carmen in the staff parking lot. The detective handed her a slim earpiece. "Plainclothes officers will mingle at the gala. The moment you spot anything, whisper." Maribel sighed. "Sometimes I miss shelving Jane Austen." Carmen grinned. "Mr. Darcy never packed stolen tech into succulents." "True," Maribel conceded, though he was full of surprises. Saturday arrived with a cloudless sky and the crisp smell of citrus on the wind. By dusk, Desert Star glittered with string lights threaded between mesquite branches. Harp music lilted near the koi pond, and guests in linen suits mingled beside glowing propane heaters. Maribel, in a sage-green wrap dress that complemented her silver hair, circulated with a tray of prickly pear mocktails. At the outdoor stage, Claudia thanked donors, while Theo hovered by the plant arrangements like a nervous stagehand. Maribel noted the blooms. Each glow was identical. Hot pink, impossibly early. She touched her earpiece. "Blooms match the torch cactus," she whispered. "Copy," came Carmen's soft reply. Somewhere in the crowd, officers blended with patrons admiring artisan tortillas. Theo stepped away from the stage, heading toward the restricted Sunfire greenhouse. Maribel followed, weaving between cocktail tables. Outside the greenhouse, crates marked "fragile live plants" waited on a dolly. The exit led to the staff drive, where a white delivery van idled, its company logo obscured with magnetized signs that could peel off in seconds. Theo glanced around, then unlocked the greenhouse. Maribel ducked behind a rain barrel. When he disappeared inside, she lifted her earpiece. Theo entering greenhouse with crates, unmarked van ready. Footsteps crunched behind her. Claudia, elegant in a copper shawl, appeared. Her smile looked carved from sandstone. "Maribel, darling, enjoying the party?" Maribel straightened. "Trying to." "You seem tense. Have a drink?" "Not thirsty," Maribel said, edging away from the greenhouse doors. Claudia's manicured hand clasped her wrist. "Let's be honest," she said quietly. "Curiosity can be dangerous." Shock prickled Maribel's spine. Claudia was in on it. Before she could reply, a clatter erupted inside the greenhouse. Theo staggered out, panting, carrying more cactus arrangements identical to those on stage. Claudia released Maribel and strode to Theo. "Get those loaded. The broker is waiting." Maribel pressed her earpiece. "Claudia Steen is involved. Send backup," she hissed. But Claudia was already whirling toward her, shawl fluttering like a sunset flag. "I wish you hadn't noticed the bloom," she said, voice low. "Torch cacti are finicky. The dye worked too well." "Why risk the garden?" Maribel asked, stalling. "You built this place." "Built," Claudia echoed, "and starved for funding. Grants have dried up. Donors want constant spectacle." She gestured toward the party lights. "Microchips finance conservation. Robin Hood with thorns." Maribel's heart hammered. Ethical debates could wait. Police needed time. She glanced at the dolly. One arrangement teetered perilously close to the edge. She lifted it, pretending to admire the bloom. "Spectacular," she said, rotating the pot. She nudged a pad, exposing a seam. Claudia's eyes narrowed. "Put that down." Maribel did, intentionally setting it crooked. The cactus wobbled, tipped, and crashed, splitting pads across the concrete. Anti-static envelopes spilled out like metallic confetti. Claudia lunged to scoop them up, but sirens whooped beyond the staff gate. Phoenix police cruisers blocked the driveway, red and blue strobe lights flickering across aloe fronds. Theo froze, pot balanced in his hands, as Carmen led a cluster of plainclothes officers through the gate. "Police, step away from the plants." Theo obeyed, trembling. Claudia's shoulders sagged, shawl slipping. Guests peered from the gala lawn, phones raised. Desert Star's fairy lights reflected in their astonished eyes. Officers collected the envelopes, read Miranda rights, and escorted Claudia and Theo to cruisers. Carmen approached Maribel. "You okay?" "Fine," Maribel said, brushing dirt from her skirt. "Though I may avoid prickly pear mocktails for a while." Later, under the glow of a patio heater, Carmen filled in the blanks. Claudia had recruited Theo, who struggled with student debt, to smuggle microchips for a tech broker. They'd chosen Desert Star because plant shipments provided constant cover, and the gala offered a flawless exit point: load floral centerpieces into a van, drive away before midnight. Smart, Maribel admitted, sipping actual water now, if you overlook the horticultural impossibility of a January bloom. Carmen chuckled. Never underestimate a librarian in retirement. As officers catalogued evidence, Claudia's assistant approached Maribel timidly. "Ms. Ortiz," she said, "the board wants you to know tonight's incident doesn't reflect your service. They're grateful." Maribel managed a smile. "The garden belongs to everyone. I was just paying attention." By 11, the gala resumed in cautious merriment. Musicians played jazz near the agave beds, and volunteers rallied to replace missing arrangements with honest, bloomless cacti. Maribel walked the darkened pollinator's path one last time. The torch cactus stood minus its false blossom, pad sealed with police tape. In moonlight, it looked ordinary, almost bashful. She patted its ribbed side. "You'll bloom when you're good and ready," she whispered. As she headed for the gate, Zack hustled up, excitement shining through fatigue. "Ms. Ortiz, heard you cracked the case. That's epic." "Just a little plant sleuthing," she teased. "How's your arm?" "Fine. Theo's crate was the worst thing that happened to me all week, and the best, I guess." He scratched his freckles. "Think the board will need a new horticulturist?" "Probably," she said, "and they'll need trustworthy interns to keep an eye on things." Zack beamed. "Count me in." Maribel stepped outside into desert night spangled with stars. The distant city hummed, but here saguaros framed the sky like cathedral pillars. She breathed the cool air and thought of stories she had shelved back at the library, tales of gardeners, detectives, ingenious thieves. Life, she decided, was simply another well-thumbed mystery, and she had turned a satisfying page tonight. At home, she would jot notes for the garden newsletter. How to spot a fake cactus bloom. She envisioned readers squinting at their succulents, grinning at the absurdity, and perhaps paying a bit more attention to the quiet marvels around them. For that, the desert would thank her, and that was mystery enough.